Don't we all love summer vacation, relaxing, laying out by the pool, barbecues, hitting the beach, doing, well, nothing? Well, how about a summer vacation from your house payments? With SaveWithConrad.com, you can do just that. Reduce your monthly payments by making the equity you built up in your home work for you. You can roll together those high interest rate credit cards into one lower monthly payment and perhaps access some of that newfound equity to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. And how about this? You get to skip your next two house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your June or your July house payment. You're done until August 1st. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you for free. There's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. And did I mention we're offering a 3-year guarantee right now? That's right. That means if at any point interest rates improve over the next 3 years, you get a free refi. That's right. No new lender fees from us. So you get to save money now without wasting money later when the rates improve on a whole second set of closing costs. Why not go to SaveWithConrad.com and get a guarantee? Save money now and save money later with your friend in the mortgage business. That's me, Conrad Thompson at SaveWithConrad.com. Shoot me an email at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Give us a call at 888-425-0105. Or get yourself a quick quote, even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Let's take a summer vacation from house payments at SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and we are live at 83weeks.com. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer himself. Ladies and gentlemen, the only man to kick Vince McMahon's ass. Not once, not twice, but 83 weeks in a row. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for EZE Eric Bischoff. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you?
Living large, brother. One of my favorite holidays, 24 hours away. 4th of July, Mrs. B's birthday. I can't wait. We got friends and family coming out. I put 16 pounds of pork butt on the big green egg right before I came out here to record, which is why I was running 20 minutes behind, by the way, because I had to get that temperature right at 225 degrees, not 235 degrees, not 215 degrees. Wanted it right where I wanted it. And once it got there, it was locked in. Here I am. I'm really excited. Can you tell? I'm going to go to the parade tomorrow. The Cody 4th of July parade is without question an internationally recognized and known 4th of July parade. People from all over the world come to see it. And I'll send you pictures tomorrow, video live, just to prove my point. But it is the coolest parade, I think, in America. It is, I get tears. I've been to every Cody rodeo parade or 4th of July parade probably in the last 25 years. I don't miss it. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, grab a lawn chair, 2 lawn chairs, one for me, one for Mrs. B, who refuses to show up that early for a parade because she's, rational, all that. But not me, man. I'm down there. I'm going to be the first one to pick the prime spot so I can just absorb every second of it. Kids, animals, horses, mules, buffalo, clowns. It's amazing. You should check it out. Should be a bucket list item for anybody that loves America.
Well, we know what you've fallen in love with recently. The internet found out last week, thanks to your great close personal friend, Diamond Dallas Page. Eric Bischoff is jacked and 70. I think once upon a time, Scott Baio was single and 40 or 40 and single or what have you. Well, look at Eric Bischoff here. Eric, you said that you were going to make a big reveal on your birthday, and you were hesitant to do so. I know you had decided, maybe I'm not quite ready to do that just yet, but you had really dedicated yourself to fitness a few years ago with the birth of your grandson and thought, hey, I want to get in better shape to enjoy more time with WayJ. Man, you didn't do it a little bit. You did it a lot. How are you feeling? What do you attribute all of this newfound wellness? What are your new best practices you can share with some of our listeners?
There's a lot, and it would get really boring for anybody who's not really that interested in this type of thing. But Lori and I have been into the nutrition rabbit hole to various degrees really over the last 30 years. Started with a book that I read called Sugar Blues, where I realized that I was hypoglycemic. This was back in my early 20s when I was kickboxing. And that book kind of opened my eyes up. And then just Lori became very interested right after the kids were born. She studied holistic nutrition for a long time. And just that's our lifestyle kind of in general, right? But a number of things happened, too long and boring to go into right here, but they were big kind of moments, that made me realize that I'm definitely getting older. And I have two choices. I can either slow that process down to the best of my ability, which, by the way, with all of the new information and access to great, great products, that's a lot easier today than it was 2 years ago, for that matter. So the amount of new information, new products that are out there, credible products and information, you can't reverse it, aging, but you can slow that bitch down by a lot, like almost slam on the brakes in some respects. So that's what started it. I ended up in a hospital with a self-inflicted intestinal issue that everybody probably knows about if you think about it for a second. And then WayJ's born. And here's the honest truth. I'm kind of vain. One of the reasons I don't like watching myself on TV, quite honestly, back, especially, in the 2000s and some of the stuff I did in WWE is because I was like 30 or 40 pounds overweight, which is, if you're not on television, who cares? But when you make your money on television, you become aware of it. And once I got out of TV, I just kept gaining weight. And I was up to about 220, which, I'm not a big frame guy. My natural body weight, if I was, 15, 18% body fat, it's probably about $160. I'm not a big bone, big, heavily muscled person, genetically, naturally. So don't let the natural part fool you, folks. I'm a full disclosure, full transparency guy, and I'm going to get there. But it started with the keto diet, and I started feeling better, but not losing the weight I was hoping for, because I was really fat for me. And it did, people say, "Oh man, yeah, he's in great shape," and I never saw him with his shirt off. No shit. And I'm deceptively built in a way. I'm almost as thick naturally as I am wide. I just have I don't have wide shoulders, but I'm this way, right? Always have. And I carried most of my weight right out in front of me. And it was easy to notice if you were paying attention. I saw a picture of me holding WayJ right after he was born. And I looked like I was 7 months pregnant. So I just, all these, things started really making an impression on me. And then I listened to Dr. Sean Baker on Joe Rogan's podcast, go into the carnivore diet. I dove right into that and started feeling a lot better. Energy came up, everything just felt better. And for the first time in my life, I went to the gym with the intention of lifting weights for at least a year. Because throughout my whole life, even when I was active in kickboxing and amateur wrestling and all the other, stupid shit I did, I was always in great cardio because I loved to run, but I hated lifting weights. It drove me nuts. It just seemed like such a waste of time for me, and based on what I was doing at the time. So I've never really lifted, but I said, okay, I'm not losing weight. I can't really run anymore because my knees are jacked up. One of them is. So I can't really do much cardio. And Lori said, man, go lift weights, because lifting, not only are you going to burn energy while you're in the gym, but your body keeps burning energy because you're breaking down muscle and blah, 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 blah. Your metabolism picks up. Eat weights. I'll try it. I'm hooked. I'm in the gym 5 days a week, sometimes 6. My workouts take from 70 to 90 minutes, depending on what I'm doing that day. I really learned a lot. And, the first 6 months, I trained not to hurt myself. Started really, really slow because, the heaviest thing I've thrown around for the last 30 years is a 12-pack. So I had to be careful, and I was focused on my form, learned a lot from reputable people. You know, it's so much available on social media, even Instagram in particular on this item. But I learned, I trained, and I just fell in love with it. And now I'm pushing heavier weight. I'm building lean tissue intentionally as opposed to just stabilizing my joints and strengthening my joints and things like that. So I'm digging it. So here's my stack. Everybody thinks I'm on HGH and Tren. I don't even know what the fuck Tren is, but everybody else thinks I'm on it. Any number of other, steroids, and it's not true. I am admittedly, and I don't want to say proudly, but confidently saying I am on a half a cc of testosterone twice a week, administered by my doctor. I get a blood panel every 90 days and check all the critical markers. And by the way, folks, I've been doing this for 25 years and it didn't show up, right? Because I wasn't doing anything. Testosterone, especially at my age, it only matters if you're actually working hard. Otherwise, you're just sitting around horny. That's it. So that's it. That's all I'm doing. Everything else is diet, carnivore. Now I am on these aminos called Perfect Aminos. I don't have an affiliate program with them. I don't know anybody there. I learned about them from a guy by the name of Gary Brecka, Brekka. Listen to Gary Brecka /aminos on Joe Rogan or anywhere else, and learned a lot from him. And I'm able to, for example, I promise this is where I'll stop because this is getting crazy, but it's an important part of this. It's way more important really than a half a cc of test twice a week. These perfect aminos are complete aminos, complete essential amino acids, which is the byproduct of protein. So I can take 5 of these tablets in the morning, which I do first thing I do when I wake up. And it's the equivalent of 30 grams of whey protein that you would put in a protein drink, but there's 0 calories and they immediately metabolize into your muscles. So I can lift hard, work 16 hours a day, and feel great on about 16 or 1800 calories while I'm lifting pretty intensely. So it's a unique opportunity to build lean tissue and burn body fat at the same time. I eat 0 carbs, 0 sugars. I will have a drink occasionally, probably twice a month. That's it. That's it, folks. Nothing else. Not that cool. Not controversial, mostly hardworking diet with a little bump when you're 70.
When would you say you really started?
About a year ago, because my goal, as I shared with you privately, is like, you know what, I'm going to really work hard at this. And on my birthday, my 70th birthday, not so much because frankly, I don't think I look that good. I just don't look as bad as I used to. And that's what shocks people. It's like, it is what it is. I get it. I'm not anywhere near where I know I can be and will be probably sooner than later. But I started seriously about May 27th last year. Up until that point, it was like intermittent bullshit.
How about that, boys and girls? That's proof right there that a lot can happen in a year. Shout out to EZE. Let's throw some of those near nudes up there again. We're thirst trapping for Eric Bischoff out here today. If you haven't seen him, there he is. That's the man who kicked Vince McMahon's ass. That's the man who challenged Vince to a fight live on pay-per-view. And Vince was a giant wuss and no-showed. And now we see why he was going to catch a beatdown.
Hey, can I add one more thing while that picture's up? Because this is the one that made me chuckle. And first of all, you got to remember, I just got done working out with these damn power cuffs that Paige turned me on to, which are designed and scientifically researched and all the other bullshit to actually force a much more intense pump than you would normally get lifting weights.
Yes.
That's what this whole thing was about. So yeah, I like my shoulders and my chest looks pretty awesome there. But when I get out of the gym later on this afternoon, I'm not going to look like that. Okay. It's a lot of it had to do with those cuffs and the way they were designed to work, proving that they're effective. But here's what I want to point out. My gut is the reason I didn't reveal what I was originally going to reveal that I discussed with you is because I'm still 15 to 20 pounds overweight. All of it's in my gut. I point that out because one of the big things was, oh, he's got roid belly, HGH belly. No, motherfuckers, I'm just carrying weight. That's all it is. And it's the last place it wants to leave. It's the first place it showed up, and it's the last motherfucker to go home. It's like a really bad party guest. They get there early, they become obnoxious, and right when everybody else leaves, they're still there driving you crazy. So that's why my gut looks kind of weird in that shot. And not because of HGH or what the fuck else has I've been accused of. None of
Well,
that.
the other thing I want to mention, Eric, I'm glad you brought it up because I did see a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, he's clearly on TRT. Hey, guys, when you hit 40, you should ask your doctor if you should be looking into TRT. Certainly when you're 50 or 60 or 70, just as you get older as a man, you produce less testosterone. And I understand that people that are sports fans usually hear this when they're, that sort of thing about, oh, he's taking testosterone, about 19 and 25 and 31-year-old professional athletes. Eric is a podcaster who turned 70. It's okay if he takes a little testosterone at his doctor's office. He's not buying shit in a gym in a paper bag. He's going to the doctor's office and doing testosterone replacement therapy. You would be surprised how many people in your real life do that. That's not a hack for vanity. That's just real life, right, Eric?
Yeah, and I don't want to go too deep into this because this is really off topic, but one of the reasons that I've been on testosterone, even when I haven't been working out, quite obviously, and it had no, aesthetic effect or benefit to me. Now there's different schools of thought on this, as there is on just about everything now, most of it starting with politics. But, and I don't want to sound like an expert, I'm just going to talk about my choice and why TRT for me is something that's not a new thing, is because prostate cancer is a real thing. And years ago, before I considered doing TRT, I met with a doctor, a chronologist, I think. And I said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Tell me the benefits, tell me the risks. And we went through it. And surprisingly, from this doctor's perspective, endocrinologist, I think, people that study this stuff, specialize in this stuff, is that his belief was that maintaining a healthy, in your mid-30s level of testosterone actually prevents prostate cancer. Prostate cancer usually doesn't develop until you're older because your testosterone levels drop precipitously by the time you hit your 50s. Well, guess what? When does prostate cancer hit? Basically in that same time period and later, because you continue to lose testosterone naturally in your system. Another point, I take a bioidentical testosterone. For those who are interested, much different than the synthetic. Okay. So it wasn't, obviously, up until 6 months ago, I really didn't care if it made me look better or not, because I didn't care, obviously. But now that I'm working my ass off, I'm seeing the benefit. I have more energy. My body reacts quicker, metabolizes things faster, builds muscle faster. That's a fact. But TRT isn't just for guys that want to get big or look better.
Right. I mean, Jim Ross has been using TRT. He's talked about it on his podcast for years. It's not just for guys who are trying to do a fitness competition. It's for everyday guys like you and I listening to this. And everyday guys, man, you know what we like? We like comfort, which is why we love the Perfect Jean. Okay, so I saw an ad on Instagram for the Perfect Jean making some pretty extreme claims. The most comfortable jeans ever. They fit your body perfectly. They stretch for days. I figured it was nonsense, but my year-old jeans had holes, and, well, I needed some new summer clothes. I needed some light jeans, some tees, some shorts. You know the drill. So I checked them out. I got them quickly, threw them on, and holy shit. I didn't know I could like jeans this much. These are the most comfortable jeans I've ever had. And the tees, by the way, they're a revelation. I think I looked younger. I think I feel better. I'm serious. I absolutely love the Perfect Jean swag. It's buttery soft. You're going to feel the difference in your hands, but wait till you try them on. You're going to love the way you look and feel when you're sporting some of the best and most comfortable gear of all time from the Perfect Jean. Here's what I mean. No more sucking in the gut. No more doing the button or zipper battle. No more chafing. No more flat ass or otherwise unflattering fits. Listen, we're as bigger guys, we can be harder to fit, but they've got waist that go from 26 to 50. They've got lengths that go from 26 to 38. You can try on a couple of sizes and you'll find one is going to be perfect. And by the way, you can easily exchange the other. They make this entire process a breeze, but I love their company. But what I really love is the product. The stretch on the jeans is very forgiving, and it's going to help enhance your assets, we'll say. I'm a big believer in this, and I also want to recommend that they've got a lot of different color variations and a lot of different options. Save yourself some money and some time shopping, really. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your first order, and you get free shipping when you go to theperfectjean.nyc, or just Google The Perfect Jean and use the code 83weeks15 for 15% off. However you get there, be sure to use the code 83weeks15 at checkout and save 15% site-wide and stay perfect. The bottom line is the Perfect Jean name doesn't just stop at jeans. Everything I've had from them fits perfectly, makes you feel confident. It balances like looking sharp and feeling like you're in loungewear. Trust me, just try them. They've nailed the basics and the price is right. It's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off their first order, plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use our code 83weeks15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with the promo code 83weeks15. Now, after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. F your khakis and get the Perfect Jean. Eric, I'm excited to ask you this first question because it's something that you and I have never really talked about before. And I don't even know how comfortable you'll be with the topic, but let's tackle it. It's on this day in WWE history, and they asked three related questions. Why did Gordon Solie leave WCW? And he says Conrad has asked both Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone, who don't think it was over Lanny Poffo. Why was this his final broadcast 30 years ago so low key? It was on Pro, and there was really no promotion that it was his final show. And what does Eric make of Gordon's later criticism of him? And Mike Mooneyham actually did an article on Gordon Solie from when he died 25 years ago this month. And Mike reports how Gordon called you a corporate assassin after his departure in 1995. And he said publicly that was, it was called philosophical differences is the way it was phrased back then. But he called you a corporate assassin. With all due respect, I don't want you to have to feel like you're in this place. I will just share. It is public record that at different times, Gordon in WCW was struggling with alcohol issues. And that's not a secret. It's been discussed. JR has even said, one of the things he tried to do to take care of Gordon is schedule his pre-tapes at a certain time of the day when he felt like Gordon was less likely to have had something a little extra in his cup. I'm assuming that really is what led to the end of his time in WCW. Did you have an official falling out, or what was the nature of your relationship with Gordon Solie?
Really, I liked Gordon. When I first got, let me explain a little bit why. When I first got to WCW, I was a fish out of water. I didn't know anybody, particularly within the production environment, right? Larry Zbyszko and Diamond Dallas Page were the only two people in WCW that I personally knew at that time, I think. Pretty close. So when I first got to WCW, and I was staying at the Omni Hotel, they would fly me in on Sunday night out of Minneapolis. I'd be there Monday, I'd be there Tuesday, and generally would fly home Wednesday morning. And while I was there, they would put me up at the Omni Hotel in the CNN Center because they owned it. And the production facility was down in the atrium of said CNN Center. There was also some shopping. There were some restaurants, famously Jocks and Jill's, same thing, right? But there was also a British pub on the main level. And I don't remember the name of it, doesn't matter. But it was a really cool English pub. And not knowing anybody, and not really feeling like sitting in my room by myself watching television all night, when I was done at the end of the day, I didn't have anything better to do or somewhere else to go eat because there was limited food there, really. If I wasn't really into Omni food, then I'd walk around, maybe get some fish and chips at the English pub or whatever. I'd go in there, and inevitably, Gordon Solie was at the bar. Oftentimes, the only person at said bar. Hold on one second. So naturally, I'm sorry, since we worked together, not necessarily on camera together, but we were in a production studio together, he's one of the first people that I quote unquote hung out with for the first month or two I was there. And just got to know him. I didn't really know him. I didn't know of him prior to getting to WCW because he had no footprint as an on-camera personality in Minneapolis when I was watching wrestling. So it was an initial meeting for me. I subsequently learned about his background, his contributions, and all the things that made Gordon Solie such a legend to this day. So I learned, I had respect for him. I think, the drinking was a contributing factor. It just exacerbated the real problem. And the real problem was generational. I think it was hard, and this is not uncommon at all. I experienced it myself. At least I'm beginning to recognize this in myself, is that it's easy, particularly somebody like Gordon, who's involved in so much memorable, important, iconic matches and stories and broadcasts, and he had that voice. It's like, man, there's no other voice like that. Nobody will ever sound like Gordon Solie. It just will never happen. That's his Gene Okerlund, same thing. There's some guys whose voices are as powerful as the visual image of them. Some people even more so. That was Gordon Solie. I knew all of that, but for Gordon, it was really hard for him to see me go from, that kid from Minneapolis I never heard of, to this young kid I've never heard of before from Minneapolis now calling the shots in a business that I've, carved out an important name. And now he's my boss. I get that. It's hard. It's hard. It starts with questioning, someone's experience, or what exactly is the reason for this kid to get an opportunity that maybe I don't even want it, but I could have at least been asked. There was a lot of that going around WCW at the time. So I understand it, and it doesn't hurt my feelings. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It doesn't make me wish, Gordon respected me more, or I'm upset that he made those comments, because I understand why he made them. I get it. I've come close to making stupid comments like that myself sometimes. So it's human nature, and I get it. He was a great announcer. I had a lot of great conversations with him, and I learned a ton, not necessarily about announcing, but Gordon sharing stories at that English pub in the CNN Center for whatever it was, 30, 60 days, for a night or two a week. I learned a lot from Gordon Solie and got a much better world view, or at least a broader view of how important a lot of things were in professional wrestling that I had no exposure to.
Do you think he was calling you a corporate assassin and all this in his interview with Mike Mooneyham in an effort to curry favor in the court of public opinion to try to position himself for another potential gig, or was it just sour grapes? I mean, I really struggle with him calling you a corporate assassin.
I think it was just a little bit of bitterness with a side of, resentment thrown in. He got fired. He got let go. That makes anybody angry at some level or another if you're human. And in Gordon's mind, I was that young kid that really didn't know anything about the business, coming in and making changes, and he's out of a job. Part of the reason he was out of a job was self-inflicted. Drinking was an issue. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I appreciate Jim being honest about it. Otherwise, it's just me saying it. But it was not only a problem, it was a problem that was getting worse. And you can only accommodate that so much. And we'd reached so much. But it probably started with just a generational divide.
Let's do a question here from Wrestling Bios. He says, if NWO Nitro went ahead every Monday night, with Thunder being the WCW show, what would the overall long-term premise be? He's talking about NWO Nitro. Would WCW guys be getting invited to Mondays for matches? Would there be tryout matches for WCW talent who wanted to join for NWO membership? Are we going to see WCW and NWO guys invading each other's shows? I know it's all long in the past, but any little ideas that could have floated around that would have worked would be great to hear. Interesting question here, Eric. If you were to put on your thinking cap and imagine this alternate reality of there's going to be an NWO Nitro, would you have invited WCW talent? Would it have been an enhancement talent? Like, what is the angle for presenting a heel show, if you will?
We've talked about this before, and it was never NWO Nitro was never going to be all heels. It was the NWO brand, the attitude, the persona, the character that the broader NWO represented. What is that? At the time, probably anarchy, just whatever it was that kind of transformed not just wrestling, but other forms of entertainment, where the heels were actually kind of cool, and you can understand why they're heels. Right?
Well, no, I'm with you, but in kayfabe, why is a babyface showing up at an NWO show?
For story. Look, I don't want to make it sound like any of this had been contemplated in any great detail.
Right.
My approach when, boom, I'm faced, okay, what am I going to do with this Thunder show? How do I make this work? How do I make it so they're not eating each other alive in terms of dilution? Oh, I'll separate them. One is one brand, one is another brand, not probably different than some of the early Raw SmackDown brand formats. There would have possibly been, we can, sit here and play Booker and have fun doing it, by the way, because there's a million ideas that could be born out of this, but we just never got to them for a variety of reasons. So the general idea is to create two separate branded shows, anticipating, because you have to have, the idea was that we were competing against each other. So instead of WCW competing against WWE, I'd already kicked their ass. Future for me was, okay, how do I go from that here, where I was then, to creating my own competition so that I can maintain this? Because this was going to run out of rope eventually, meaning just us against Monday Night Raw. You just run out of shit after a couple of years, right? But I thought if we could create a self-contained environment where you've got people absolutely loyal to the WCW brand because it represents a tradition and some of the fundamentals of wrestling, and pays homage to legends and people that came before them. That was the kind of essence, if you will, of the character of Thunder. Whereas the character of the Nitro show, and the way it would be branded throughout, would be much more irreverent. And maybe they don't give a shit about the past, because right now the only thing that matters is today. So that was the premise. And yes, we anticipated, intercompany, storylines and situations. We would have had to create stakes along the way in order for that to make any sense. If there's not a reason for it, then it's just stuff for the sake of stuff. But all of that stuff would have had to have been contemplated and creatively massaged and fabricated so that it made sense. But again, we never got there.
Here's an interesting question. This is from Derek T. Lewis, and he wants to know, why wasn't Eric offered a network TV executive job after WCW closed? He would have been a great asset for many networks. I know that you went the entrepreneur route and started doing your own thing, but did it ever even cross your mind to try to get back into corporate television, or have you had your fill of that at this point in Turner?
I had 2 opportunities immediately after leaving WCW. And I went out and took 2 meetings. One of them is with Hughes Communications. They were about, and I don't know if they ever launched this or not, but at the time, they were Hughes, which is, I think it was DirecTV at the time, whatever. But it was Hughes is where I had my interview because it was near the airport, Los Angeles. They were developing technology where a Broadway play, for example, could be streamed it wasn't called streamed at the time, but could have been streamed directly to a theater or theater chain and marketed in the local community. So for people that love Broadway plays but really can't afford to go or have time to go, this would have been the next best thing. That was their business model. I got an interview to interview for the president of that division, and it came through. I was represented by William Morris at the time. That's who it came through. And I took the meeting. I think it took the first meeting. I was really excited, but I didn't learn much about what the job would really be. The second meeting, I learned a lot more about what the job would really be. And it wasn't for me at that time. It was too corporate. I'm too much of an entrepreneur to easily fit into a typical corporate structure. I either break things or get really frustrated. Break things like bull in a china shop, break things like, well, why can't we just go over here and do this? Well, because that's not your department. Well, okay, doesn't matter if it's my department. It's a good idea. Who cares? I was done with that. I was done with, in my mind at that time. Now, a couple of years later, I would have approached it differently. But at that time, it's like, if I have to wear a tie, I'm not going. That was kind of like when my agent would call me, hey, somebody wants to talk to you. I would say, do I have to wear a tie? He said, yes. I would say, tell me more before I go.
I appreciate you being honest and transparent about who you are. What a fascinating life you've lived, dude. And one of the things I know that you've got down pat is travel. You've been living out of a suitcase for these last few months, getting everything ready for Real American Freestyle. And a lot of you may have some holiday travel lined up. I want to smarten you up about how easy it is to pack with Mando. You probably ask yourself, hey, do I need all these little miniature toiletry bottles? I mean, I see a lot of people who make that last minute run to like the drugstore. Oh, I'm traveling. I got to go get all my travel stuff. And so it becomes a separate shopping list. And then you wonder, did I remember to pack that? Did I get it all? Hey, let me just make life a little easier with Mando. They've got a Mando 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. This thing is next level. I want to mention they call this a 4-in-1, but it's really more like a 5-in-1. This will work as your shampoo, as your face wash, as your body wash, and as your deodorant, all in one bar. It's acidified. It's going to be perfect for your skin. This is the next level. By the way, it also works as a shaving lather. So I guess that's how we get to the 5-in-1. But your entire routine is a lot easier when you don't have to worry about packing separate shampoo and face wash and body wash and deodorant and shaving lather. You got it all right here with this all-in-one Mando 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. And how about the brand new product? We love this one. Mando's brand new sweat control deodorant stick. Now, we've talked about Mando for a while, where the creator of this actually went to school in the same area of the country that Eric did. And what she's done is she's figured out how to stop stink before it starts. Here's what I mean. All the other deodorants you've ever used in your life, they're really just fragrances designed to mask your smell. But what this does with Mando, especially the new sweat control deodorant stick, is it's going to stop the stink before it ever happens. You're going to be putting something on your body that is going to work perfect with your pH balance. And when your pH changes, that's what creates those smell. So Mando is going to stop that before it even starts. But now with their brand new sweat control deodorant stick, not only do you stop odor before it starts, not only are you not just masking it, you're blocking it, but you're also fighting sweat. That's like double protection. I mean, when you sweat, it is what it is. We're all going to have to deal with it. It's super simple, though, because now with Mando's sweat control deodorant stick, we're talking 2 swipes under each arm, and that keeps you fresh and dry all day. This is safe for all skin types. It's doctor developed, it's high quality, it uses premium ingredients. Every ingredient serves a purpose. There's no filters, there's no junk. And this isn't just your average deodorant or antiperspirant. This actually combats sweat. You're going to sweat less. If you're spending a lot of time outside, you're doing beach trips, you're on the lake, you're on a boat, you're fishing, you're mowing the lawn, you're golfing, you're just working outside doing physical jobs. Maybe tomorrow you're going to be firing up the grill for the weekend. Maybe you're going to a baseball game. You need Mando in your life. Mando has been clinically proven to block odor all day long and control odor for up to 72 hours. We absolutely love their products. They're all baking soda free, they're paraben free. You get a variety of great scents like bourbon leather and clover woods and Mount Fuji and Pro Sport. I'm telling you, it is a real life hack. There's a reason they're America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, and it's because they're the very best. You can actually find Mando right now today in Walmart, Target, and other retailers. But for the best deals and to support our show, we want you to go to shopmando.com. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with that solid stick deodorant. They hook you up with the cream tube deodorant. So solid stick, you got that. You know what to do. Where does the cream tube go? It goes on your sack. It goes between your cheeks. It goes on your feet. I'm telling you, you're going to smell better naked. You're going to feel more confident when your feet aren't stinking, your sack ain't sticking, your butt ain't smelling. This is what Mando's all about. And they hook you up with everything in this starter pack. You get that solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and you get free shipping. And right now you can get 20% off site wide with our exclusive code. It's 83 weeks at shopmando.com. That'll get you 20% off site wide plus free shipping. Go right now to shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits and smell great doing it at shopmando.com. Eric, let's talk a little bit about this is an interesting question because we've spent a little bit of time talking about TNA recently. And Chris says, aside from the paycheck, why did you and Hulk feel the need to go to TNA? Did you really feel you could progress the brand? Now, the criticisms of you and Hulkster and TNA are plentiful, and people always say, oh, you're out for yourself. Oh, they took all the money. Oh, they took all the top spots, blah, blah, blah. They always make it all about the payday. So I get that's the framing of the question. But if we just set all of that to the side for a minute, Eric, did you really think when you took a look at TNA that there was an opportunity for them to grow the brand? Not necessarily to compete with WWE, but I know when you first received a call before he launched, you received a call from Jerry Jarrett and you were sort of in one ear and out the other with the idea. Now, obviously, by the time you and Hulk come along, that's years after that 2002 phone call. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, when you did come in, did you have like a goal for TNA? Like, hey, we could see it at this level. We want to get to that number. We want to get to that mark. What was the goal to try to grow and help TNA? Like in your vision, one day we'll be blank. What was that?
A lot of questions in there and timeline. So my first, as you asked, what was your first impression or your whatever thought of TNA and its potential? I wasn't watching TNA before I got a phone call or got engaged as a part of their TNA's desire to acquire Hulk Hogan. That's my first intersection with TNA. Prior to that, I don't think I ever watched it. If I did, it was like passing through and seeing it in a little tiny sound stage with a game show kind of crowd. And no, been there, done that, not interested, don't see any potential. I've done it. I kind of not invented it, but really exploited it more than anybody, beginning with the Disney MGM studio shoots and then moving over to Universal. I was really, really familiar with the professional wrestling business model with that production as your anchor or your foundation. I knew what the potential for that was, and it was really freaking limited. Like, here's my honest answer. When Hulk first called me and said, hey, I want you to handle this with me, told me why, I was like, ugh, really? Ugh. Because the product was just, it was like me going back to the AWA in terms that I know it sounds critical, but the AWA at some point was a really fun, small, local feeling brand and product that I was really, it's, cut my teeth on really as a young adult. So I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but in terms of scalability and scope, that's what I felt about TNA. Very, very limited, almost regional wrestling limited. And I was not interested in getting involved in something, quite frankly, that small. So my first was like, but Hulk is a friend. There was still a part of me because the premise of me going into TNA, which was only because Hulk demanded it, not because TNA wanted me. Dixie didn't want me there. I don't think Jeff probably did either if he had a voice at the time. Oh, he did because he was part of bringing Hulk in. But I don't think, Jeff Jarrett's idea was, hey, we get Eric Bischoff too. It was like, sometimes there's baggage. You got to take the extra bag. And I get that too. No harm, no foul. I probably would have felt the same way. So I'm not bitching. It just is what it is. Painting the picture. So once I started having a couple discussions with Dixie about how it would work, and I knew that the only creative I had to think about was making sure Hulk's creative, that Russo and Matt and other people, were coming up with, but it would come to me and I would basically help get it across the finish line with Hulk if it was an idea that was really sound, or if it wasn't an idea that was very sound for any reason, try to see if we could fix some things and change some things so that it did work, or just say, no, come up with another idea because that sucks. It's only one of the three. And if it was the middle one that required additional surgery, I love doing that. It's like being a script doctor. That's where you get to go in and really find cool ways to make sure that the story and the goal of the story has impact, right? I love doing that. It's like a specialty. Script doctors are specialty. I'm not a script doctor, but I like doing script doctor shit. It's fun. So I thought, okay, I can have some fun doing that. I'm protecting my buddy. Kind of put my toe in the water. This is how I talked myself into it. The money had nothing to do with it because I didn't need the money. Don't get me wrong. Conrad, I wasn't anywhere near independently wealthy, but I had enough income from everything else that Jason and I were doing where it just wasn't, okay, but not if it takes too much of my time. That's how I went into it. Now, over time, not because I wanted it, but because shit just happens, I became more and more involved, partly because I was having more and more fun and was able to kind of look past the smallness of it all. If I wasn't involved in the business side, I had zero conversations about business with anybody in TNA. So it was fine for me, and it was kind of working out. It didn't take much of my time. I brought Jason in so that Jason and I could work together while, my partner in BHE Productions. Now, instead of me doing my thing, he's off doing his thing. this gave us a couple of days a week where we were doing our things together, which helped us because we had other projects going on that we had to kind of collaborate on during the day too. So downtime was valuable time. We made it valuable. And it was fun. Jason and I have fun working together. So that's how it ended up.
Let's do another question here from the Yeah Revolution over on Twitter. What motivated you to turn heel and join the NWO? Had you always wanted to play a heel character, or is it something you decided to do simply because it would make the storyline more intriguing?
It was two things. It was a necessity because I didn't want to have one person within the NWO who was an active member, working member, in-ring member of the NWO, also taking the role as the spokesperson, right? Because then it becomes about them. Can't help it. They're the center of attention if they're the spokesperson. It kind of creates, I don't know, static electricity creatively amongst the talent. So it's just something you got to pay attention to and be aware of and spend a lot of time thinking about so that doesn't start shifting storylines on you without you intending it to do so. So I thought, okay, we need a spokesperson. Ugh, who's that going to be? And then in my head, just thinking of ideas, it was like, wait a minute. One of the biggest questions everybody had at the time, at least the one that resonated with me, is how does all this shit actually, how do these people get away with all backstage and showing up and walking through the crowd? I mean, doesn't WCW have security? Isn't anybody backstage to stop this thing? What the hell? So there was a lack of logic in the story from the get-go. Now you could explain it one week or maybe random weeks when we could creatively come up with ways to catch people off guard. But week after week after week, multiple times a night, it's like, what the hell? So, okay, we've got to fix that logic hole. It's a big black hole. Good Ideas was falling into it. We're falling into it. So all of this was kind of bouncing around inside my skull at the same time. And it was like, wait a minute. Here's how we explain it. I'm not a wrestler. I'm the president of the company. Who better to orchestrate a takeover from within than the head of the guy within? Logical. Pretty creative. You got to take a leap of faith to think you could actually do that. But at least it was plausible enough to suffice as a premise for a story or an angle in this case. So I made sense. And then I realized how much fun it is. And I didn't go into it because I was motivated to get on camera as a heel, which was part of the original question. That wasn't it. I was ready to get off camera completely early on because I wanted my focus and my intention and my energy and my subconscious to be focused on creative and the production side of things. That's where my head was. But I also did a little double duty behind the desk as a play-by-play guy. And when this solution basically revealed itself, I went, yeah, I'll be all right. So that was the process.
We should do another question here from James Dean. He says, if you had a do-over, what would have been the solution to staying profitable from 99 and 2001? Now we've fielded questions like this a variety of different ways, but I am wondering, like, if you could have made one massive change, like something that was outside of the Turner organization, like we've mentioned before, the what if of the NBC opportunity, or like if there was some other change, some other, hey, this almost happened, that could have happened. It was there a series of events that could have led to anything, or was the die cast at that point, no matter what we did?
The premeditated murder had been agreed upon.
Yeah.
Way before this. And look, I understand the question and appreciate it. I love answering this or focusing on this because there's so much for the last 20 years or more, 25 years, there has been this false narrative jammed into the internet wrestling community and all the dirt sheet readers and consumers that from 99 to whatever, WCW lost this vast amount of money. Folks, you've been lied to by people who are either complete frauds and con artists or just so incredibly lazy and ignorant. Either way, that narrative has been debunked, folks, with receipts. And I encourage you to read Guy Evans' book, Beyond Nitro. The receipts are in the book.
Yes.
Along with interviews from corporate executives outside of WCW and a part of the Turner organization who were in charge of said receipts. So you can listen to the dirt sheet internet wrestling community, low hanging, low credibility to no credibility garbage, or you can read a book. I encourage you to read a book, because for me to answer that question or try to say, well, if we would have done this, then this would have happened, and then maybe things would have been different, you have to ignore the facts. The facts are we were making money. We weren't losing the amount of money that we were reported by the dirt sheets to be losing. Receipts are in the book, by the way, Beyond Nitro. That wasn't the case. It was not a financial issue for WCW. It was an internal decision by executives who orchestrated a financial dump of liabilities onto WCW's books to obfuscate their own and better position themselves with the pending corporate merger. But that's kind of hard for people to absorb unless you're really interested. So most people just go, oh, what did this asshole say? Oh, well, that must be what it is because it's in print. He gives 5-star matches to people that deserve it. So
I love it. OPW Chris says, hindsight being 2020. And man, this is an interesting question. Had the WWF contacted you about a job after your dismissal from WCW in 99, would you have considered joining your rival? Now, we know ultimately you did this years later, but in 99, when you were sent home, were you legally available at that point to go to the WWF? Was that even possible, Eric?
No, I still had 2.5 years left on my contract.
Okay.
I was on September 10th of 1999 at about 10:05 in the morning in Harvey Schiller's office at 1 CNN Center on the 15th floor. I was 14, he was 15. I sat in Harvey's office and got let go. That initiated a legal term within my contract called pay or play. Once a pay or play provision, at least in my contract, the way it was written, once it was executed and Turner said, oh, we're going to pay you to stay home for the next 2.5 years. You can't undo it. It's a bullet that leaves the barrel and you can't put that bullet back in the barrel. And I knew that at 10:25 when I walked out of Harvey's office. So it wasn't like, oh, I'll show them. Conversely, had I gotten a phone call at 10:45 a.m., 20 minutes after walking out of Harvey's office, I would have gotten really excited about it because, wow, man, what a screw you that would have been. But I knew I couldn't have even entertained it because I was under contract and they weren't going to let me go. They made damn sure it was clear to me that they were not letting me go. They explained pay or play to me in the meeting. So there would have been no opportunity. It would have made me feel good. It would have made me feel good, I should say.
Let's talk a little bit about indie wrestling flashbacks question, because it's another sort of Eric Bischoff career question. Had you not been selected to be the WCW Executive Vice President in 1993, what would have been your next move? Stay with WCW, try the WWF, Indies, something outside of wrestling. I guess if we were to go back and say in this alternate universe, you're going to be the C Squad announcer, someone else is going to get bumped up, whether that's Tony Schiavone or Keith Mitchell or Jim Ross or someone else, but you're not going to find yourself in that seat. Do you think you would have stuck it out in wrestling? Would you have tried something else? What would your career have looked like, Eric?
Quite a bit different. And this is not even a, hypothetical. This is an actual. Keep in mind the timeline. Bill Watts is in charge. I'm working under Bill Watts. I'm also developing my very first television show, which I subsequently sold to Fox Children's Network, which gave me this ridiculous perception that just coming up with ideas for TV shows and selling them is really not that hard. I could do this like 3 or 4 times a month, right? I had this distorted idea of how easy it was going to be for me to leave WCW because of Bill Watts. I talked about this in my book. I'd already made up my mind. I was out the door. I was like the Beverly Hillbillies, man. I was going to load up the truck and move to Beverly because there was gold in them their hills. I just got a taste of it. Came up with an idea. Built a little set, gimmick set. Went in, pitched this lady by the name of Molly Miles, who was the president of Fox Kids TV at the time, which no longer exists, but she was, and then she later became president of Universal Studios down in Florida, which is why we moved our production over there, by the way. Thank you, Molly. I'm loyal to the people that are loyal to me. That's how this shit works. So I was already out the door. I told Lori, and she was supportive of me. I don't want to work for this bucket-headed bastard anymore. This is stupid, what he's doing. His vision of where wrestling needs to go is where it was 25 years ago. And that ain't going to work. And I don't want to be here when it doesn't. So I'd made up my mind already. Now, right about the same time, Bill Watts gets fired. Bill Shaw comes in within a week or two, said, Ted wants an executive producer to oversee WCW television because this is a television company. Well, shit. I just spent 6 months coming up with an idea and refining it. I pitched it and sold it. Maybe I could be that guy. So I put my name in a hat. So the real life answer is I was already on my way gone, and I was going to LA, and I was not going to WWF or any indies, not for any other reason, not like, oh, I would never do that. No. It's because I thought erroneously that it's easy for a guy like me. Watch this. No. Thank goodness it didn't happen because I would have crashed and burned and come back with my tail between my legs.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen. And you're never going to have your tail between your legs if you're using Blue Chew. All right, gentlemen, start your boners. I mean, we could just talk about it. The world was revealed last week. Eric's 70-year-old body. And it looked like a raging hard-on. And that's because of Blue Chew. Guys, you can enter the room dick first. Blue Chew is not just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. It's like somebody gave your gimmick a pep talk and a gym membership. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And I carry my Encyclopedia Britannica everywhere now. Guys, this isn't just about performance. It's about your legacy or your third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Go discover your options right now at bluechew.com. And how about this for a special deal for our listeners? As always, you get the first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code 83weeks at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over right now to bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
You know what's cool about Blue Chew? Now, this is what I understand based on what little I've researched and read. But do you know how, like, ED products like this came to be?
No.
It came out of research and development of a medication designed to prevent heart attacks because it increases blood flow, right? Helps everything get its blood, which is the exact opposite of what a heart attack does. So that's, and while they were developing it, they went, one of the side effects is these people who were giving it to were just walking around with raging heart-ons. So it was like, well, yeah, blood pressure medicine, there's a lot of that, but there's not a heart-on pill out there. Boom. That's when it started and how it started. It's kind of like the etymology of pharmaceuticals. It's fun to watch.
Blue Chew really works. Go try it. You'll be glad you did. Hey, let's talk a little bit about a hypothetical WCW. Zeus says, who would have been the top star for WCW that never wrestled there? So the idea being, if you get your hands on WCW and you're in control and you've purchased the thing, was there someone that you had your eyes on who wasn't already under the WCW umbrella that you felt like, hey, man, I could make that guy a top star in WCW?
No, because the thought process was scaling down and not recruiting, kind of like thinning the, this sounds horrible. Managing your assets by thinning the herd. There was a lot of people under contract that were really developmental. They really weren't star potential anytime in the next 3 years with proper creative and proper everything and proper public relations. They were 2 or 3 years away. There's a lot of them and they were really good, but they weren't audience drivers. So it was more about, man, we got to thin out some of that herd. We also have to thin out some of the older herd, because it is what it is. Number one, they're expensive, and number two, they're limited. So it was more scaling down than it was any thought of, I wonder if we could get this guy. Or I got a phone call from, oh man, I could make this work. There was zero of that. Zero.
Well, now hang on. I do remember you and I having a conversation. We recorded a bonus episode that never aired once, and we talked about, if you did relaunch, and one of the things we sort of fantasy booked was Rob Van Dam and Sting in the main event, and you had Joey Styles and maybe Jerry Lawler doing commentary. How close do you think that would have ever been to fruition? Do you think Rob Van Dam, who at that point, had clearly had his contract breached by ECW, but he was not yet in the WWE, do you think you would have been a Rob Van Dam fan and tried to promote him as one of the top stars?
Yeah, no doubt. But it wasn't like there was no effort beyond. Now, I hadn't met with Rob, and as you're describing this, I'm trying to zero in on the exact timeline, because a lot of things happened very quickly within a short frame of time, like 3 months, 6 months. So, and I don't want to get it wrong, because but I did talk to Rob. I think I may have met with Rob twice, actually, and really liked Rob. One of the times I met with Rob, I think it was right about the time that we were talking about acquisition. Hadn't closed it, hadn't put a budget on it, just early conversations with Brian Badal. Before we talked about strategy, even very initial conversations. And I think it was right about that time that Rob was either already in LA or living there or whatever, but somehow we connected, and Rob and I met at Mandalay Studios, which is in, Jason Hervey had an office in Mandalay Studios because he was working there at the time. And that's where I met Rob. I may have talked to him just anticipating that there was going to be an acquisition, but there was never like, all right, I need to get Rob Van Dam. We weren't in that. Would have been great. I've been wanting him for a long time because I liked his in-ring style. He brought a legitimate martial arts aspect to his ring work. He wasn't a gimmick martial artist or somebody that, got their yellow belt at the local YMCA and 15 years ago when they were 8. Now they're out there pretending they're doing, TV karate. That shit's horrible. There was a lot of that, but Rob's stuff was crisp. It was legit. It's the first thing I notice. I can tell somebody that really understands the mechanics of throwing a kick and somebody that's just trying to get on YouTube. So I always wanted Rob. He would have been great. I like Rob a lot. Always have.
This is a great question from Derek. He wants to know, what's been your most enjoyable moment in wrestling, either as a fan or as a member of the team? Now that's interesting because it's not saying what was peak WCW. I'm just saying your most enjoyable moment in wrestling, whether that's you in the crowd watching, you at home watching, you taking the kids to an event, you booking something that explodes. Like, when you think about, if someone was to say, what is your favorite, proudest memory, most enjoyable moment? I want to go relive that. That was peak for me. What would that even be at this point, Eric?
Well, there's two different things. There's memories and there's moments. And
Yeah.
they're not exactly the same thing. So I'm going to hit the moments first because that was so easy for me. The rest of it can become difficult. But if I close my eyes and relive the Chuck and Billy wedding segment, that was, we're talking about moments now. Now that might have been
Yes.
6 minutes worth of moments, but, or whatever the length was. But if one can imagine what it's like to be in the ring and feel the way that crowd felt, I knew we had them because they were anticipating something. They just weren't anticipating me, right? These weddings had a history. All you had to do was book a wedding and you knew you were going to be in for a cool moment if you're a fan, right? I was the least one to be suspected in that gimmick, right? Because nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. Not even people in the first row. People that were talking to me from 2 feet away didn't know it was me. And I say that not to brag, but try to imagine what that feels like for yourself. And you're in that ring, and there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot that's about to happen. Once the fuse is lit and it hits go or bang, there's going to be a lot of fireworks, and they need to be kind of perfectly orchestrated, or it'll come off clunky, or worse, somebody will get hurt. So I'm doing my thing. We're gathered here today. And I'm performing now, which I don't, the rest of it was really me just with a dial turned up a little bit or a lot. This was like a completely different thing for me. I'd never done anything like this before, not even like in grade school. I didn't do plays and shit. Nothing. Never wanted to. So for me to be up there playing a character for the very first time in front of a crowd that knew something was going to go down, they just weren't sure what it was, which means they're just waiting for something to pop. Well, when you're in that moment, in that environment, when you know what's going on, you go, oh, this crowd, you can feel them. They're telling you with every fiber of their being and the energy that it creates, they're telling you, oh, you're going to give us something. And I can't wait. I just don't know what it was. And I did. And I knew the minute we pulled the pin, the place was going to go. And all this stuff was going to happen, which will make it look even cooler. That description I just went through probably took about as long as that segment. But if you could only imagine how cool that was. I don't think you can beat that moment. I can't beat that moment. That's it for me. That's my on the moment monument. That's the best one. Memories are too hard, man. There was too many of those to really pick one. It depends what mood I'm in. It changes from time to time.
With reference to your kids, and I know, as a rule, we don't usually talk about kids, but this is a happy thing. But when you think about your kids being around the wrestling business, obviously, Garrett got to live a lot of little boys' dreams. He becomes friendly with the Steiners and Big Show, and he's got an Uncle Hulk Hogan or whatever the hell. So I can only imagine how cool that is as a young boy. But when you think about Garrett and Montana, is there like a proud dad moment? Like you look back and you're like, man, that was pretty amazing that my kids got to do that. I'm glad we got to do that together. And really it was because of wrestling.
The most significant one, and there's been hundreds of these types of examples, maybe not quite at this magnitude, but whatever year it was, probably 98, New Japan, that was back when, Inoki was the president and the face of the company. And their head of business at the time, Mr. Baisho, he was on the corporate side of New Japan, controlled all the money. Masa Saito and his wife Michi, all of us have become very friendly over the course of the previous 2 or 3 years. And if you've ever done business in Japan or even been to Japan and paid attention, but certainly if you do business in Japan, because it's very much a significant and meaningful part of business to business protocol in Japan. The Japanese are incredible hosts. Like once I developed a true connection with New Japan, meaning it was, where it's business and we all know that, but we kind of really dug each other. I mean, it was fun working together. We all enjoyed it at various levels. So one year, I think it was 1998, New Japan, Inoki invited me, my wife, and my 2 kids to come to Japan, first class, spend a week in Japan. I think might have had something to do with one of the big dome shows because it was part of that. So my kids came, they got to be a part of 60, 50, 60, 80,000 people, whatever it was in the Egg Dome, see their dad up there, see dad working with these Japanese executives and wrestlers. And from a kid's perspective, that's kind of a big thing. It's eye-opening. They're seeing other cultures. They're seeing other traditions. They're seeing the world. That was a very valuable experience for me to be able to provide for my kids. The rest of the trip, I won't go into all the detail because it's too much and it was too freaking cool to describe some of it. Like going up into the mountains to an ancient Japanese onsen, which is like a natural hot bath where the samurai famously would come from that region and soak in these same baths after their big battles down on the fields. I mean, we got to experience all that. And as a father, to kind of answer your question long-windedly, to know that I could do that, and no doubt because of wrestling, it's high up on my list, very high.
Derek had a follow-up question that says, what's one idea that you didn't get over the line that you think would have been awesome? So there's lots of hypothetical ideas that have been pitched through the years, I'm sure, but is there one that stands out where you think, man, if we could have pulled that off, it would have been something?
Yeah, it's been out there. Talked about this before. It's probably been revealed in other people's books. I really wanted to fake my own death.
Yeah.
I had my own plane at the time. Everybody knew it. It was unusual for me to go fly to Las Vegas just for a weekend, just to say I did. Fly there, eat a meal, go to bed, get up, fly out the next morning, get to put that in my logbook. I did that shit all the time. And I thought, man, what if I just made it known I was going to go fly around the Grand Canyon, maybe southern Arizona, see what the border looks like from the air. And then somehow the speculation would be that I must have gotten off course and flew into Mexican airspace. I was no longer being tracked by FAA. Who knows what happened? And then kind of feed the rumor mill enough tidbits that they'll arrive at their own silly shit because it's easy to do. It's really, really easy to do. Wow, it's easy. And I was going to take advantage of that. knew it then just like I know it now. And it's like, you know what? If I do the right thing and make sure it travels through the right pipeline, I can plant a story that there's at least a suspicion that Eric Bischoff died in a plane crash while touring the Mexican border. I could have made that believable. So I ran it by my family, being my wife. We hadn't made up our mind how we were going to tell our kids yet. But I laid it out to my wife. I explained why. I don't know how much she believed it or thought I would talk myself out of it. That's probably it, knowing her. She's probably thinking, okay, I want to nod my head and go, okay, because I know he's going to wake up and go, God, what a stupid idea that was. Happens a lot. Well, I really thought I could pull it off. So I went to my wife because I didn't want to go to Harvey and have my wife go, no, you can't do that. Can't have that, right? Shrink my balls up like that. I can't have that. Not in front of my boss. He's Harvey Schiller. I think he was a colonel in the Air Force at the time. He's currently a brigadier general, for crying out loud. What am I going to say? Oh, yeah, you know, I pitched this idea and you loved it, but my wife won't let me do it. No. So to prevent that humiliation, I went to my wife first, thought what I got was buy-in, at least a hint of it. And then I pitched it to Harvey Schiller. And Harvey said, here. No. And then proceeded to explain why. And I got it. I mean, it is what it is. I was an officer within Turner Broadcasting of a publicly held company. If it's revealed that this fake death for a wrestling storyline could be interpreted as somehow manipulating public stock, there's exposure there. And the minute you've got any exposure, there's going to be somebody out there willing to sue you at that level when you're playing at that level. So I understood it. I just hated it. If I'd have gotten a green light from Harvey, I would have done it.
Let's do a fun question here from Josh Williams. I like this one. He says, if WCW made a movie based on one thing, would it be the first Nitro and things that happened that night, like the Saturday Night Live movie that came out last year? Or would you do it on the creation of the NWO? So if there was going to be a feature film, so we'll call it an hour and 40 minutes, and we're going to tell a story in WCW, would it be the night Hogan turned heel and the creation of the NWO? Or would it be the night of the very first Nitro? So it's done in terms of that very first show. And maybe it's something else. If you were going to do a WCW movie on one night in WCW, what night would it be?
Oh, on one night?
One night.
It would have
Let me give you the premise of the Saturday Night Live movie. Nobody had ever seen Saturday Night Live. This is the very first episode of Saturday Night Live. Nobody really even understands the concept, but they're going to debut it, ready or not. Whether you're ready or not, we're live on NBC tonight. And so Lorne Michaels and that crazy cast of characters from the original Saturday Night Live cast, we got to see how they all came together and created a new show that nobody really knew what to expect, and expectations weren't very high. And now we know it became an institution. So that was sort of the idea behind the movie. So if we were to take a look at one feature film about one night in WCW, what would it be?
That makes it a lot easier. And there'd be multiple choices, which is great when you're pitching a movie, because you never want to pitch one idea. You want to have another one in your back pocket in case you have to shift on the fly. I would go first with the launch of Nitro. From the minute I sat down at Ted's office to the minute we went live in Minneapolis, that movie would be about that night. And how important of a night that was. This is what I beat on. I know people think, man, are you tired of putting yourself over, Eric? Do you ever get sick of cramming your bullshit down our throat because you want us to believe what you believe? This is not that. I've talked about this, and this is a great example. I've said before how I personally, not necessarily for my ego, but for my kind of objective awareness of things, I know I am a large part of the success to this day of WWE. Not necessarily directly, obviously, but indirectly, I forced Vince McMahon into a format change and a strategic business change because of what I created at Nitro. You can argue that all you, not you, Conrad, but one can argue that all they want. The timeline, the completely obvious change in strategy, including the day and date of the announcement by Vince McMahon in November. It's, you cannot deny what I'm saying to be absolute truth. Had WWE not, here's my backup, or not my backup, my point. Had WWE not made that shift and focused on the 18 to 49-year-old demographic that I used as a target for Nitro and built my show to appeal to, because they were right in the bullseye of my target, because that was completely different than the bullseye for WWE. I couldn't hit their bullseye, but I could hit mine. When that shift to 1849 happened in the professional wrestling genre, everything about the business shifted with it. That doesn't happen without Nitro. Nobody will convince me I'm wrong. I'll be interested in a good, solid, well-researched argument because I'll learn something. But, you know, subjectively, you want to argue that without any basis for it, it's like, okay, go read a dirt sheet.
Let's do another question here. This is from Ari. He says the Monday Night Wars electrified pro wrestling, but what about the negative aspects of it? Squash matches help promote pay-per-views and house shows by giving away top matches for free on TV. Did pro wrestling forever lose an important marketing tool? Now, what I think is interesting about this is, you know, you have said before, and I love the way you describe this because I think you've retold the story before on the show, where when you first were watching wrestling with Lori, you were explaining to her, this is years before you're in the business, that this is one of the most true forms of marketing there is. And I love that your brain worked where you saw, oh, wow, they're just trying to use this as a promotional vehicle to sell tickets. And I don't think a lot of people necessarily put that together. They're just watching a show, but you got it. And so I do think what Ari is bringing up is a valid point, in that you understood as a fan watching on television, oh, they're showing me these matches in order to get me to pay with my wallet and come down to the arena and buy a ticket. I get that. But that is certainly going to change when you're trying to compete with Monday Night Raw, because we don't want to have enhancement matches versus enhancement matches all the time. Of course, we still saw enhancement matches on Nitro, but there was a shift. Did you, and I know that you're a television company, so you're not operating and making decisions for this television company like you would a traditional wrestling company, but you really got what house shows were all about. And I think that because you came out so strongly, and everybody knows how you feel about WCW house shows, and that they were losing money every time you left the building and all that sort of stuff, I think you get painted unfairly as trying to kill the house show business. The reality is they were losing money. It was broken. It wasn't working. But the idea that he really hit the nail on the head, it's an important marketing tool. And it does feel like, as we're talking about it today, Eric, house shows are a thing of the past. Like, they just don't really exist anymore. I mean, once upon a time, it was unfathomable for WCW or the WWF to not have at least 3 in a week. I couldn't tell you the last time they had one. Like, they're really, really rare. Do you think that the Monday Night Wars aided in killing the house show model, or was it on its way out no matter what?
It's on its way out no matter what. The costs are ridiculous. even when you do a 60 or 70% sellout and you're moving merch, the cost of traveling, talent, production, you still have lights, cameras, not necessarily cameras, you have lights and staging and rings and crews and all the electrical that comes with it, audio that comes with it. So it's not a television production in terms of scale, but it's still a significant expense. And every year it gets more and more expensive. Look, there's a lot in that question, and certainly what you added to it, Conrad. But the core of the question from Ari had to do, I think, the way I interpreted it. He's a lawyer, so I got to be careful how I say this stuff. Just kidding. We were a television company, as you pointed out. I was more concerned about the television revenue to WCW and the corresponding pay-per-view that went with it than I was about the house show business. To me, the house show business was a necessary evil. Even when they weren't making money, there were people doing it because it's cash flow. And if you listen to Dick Cheatham in any of Guy Evans' interviews or in his book, there were some sketchy things about cash flow. Not illegally sketchy, but borderline sketchy, but okay, moves in terms of cash flow. So I understood business-wise where they were doing it for as long as they did it. But when the business model shifted, once I was hired from this company either makes $1 a profit, turns a profit, or Ted is going to unplug it. That changed everything. Now, yeah, house shows are a necessary evil for whatever justification you want to give them, but we can't afford them. That was the case in WCW. That's why I eliminated. We could not afford that line item expense and ever hope to stay alive long enough to keep Ted from pulling the plug. So that was the first victim. Now, the reason I felt comfortable with that, Ari, is because this sounds corny as hell, and I understand it, but it was basically one of those sayings like, Gretzky's, skate to where the puck is going. This was not that. This was like, what's that Kevin Costner baseball movie?
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams moment. If you build it, they'll come. I believed in my head, if I could get people interested enough in the television property, it's really just math. If I can get this many people watching on television every week, I can probably get this many people to come to a house show. Guess what happened? That was my approach. That was my gut. It wasn't based on my experience because I didn't have any. This was my first experience in making a decision like this, but it turned out to be true. Because by eliminating squash matches, what happened to our television ratings? It came up. The brand became more popular. That's what happens when the brand becomes more popular, because the television is the brand. Everything else is just ancillary revenue opportunities. Just the low-hanging fruit that happens, right? Well, all of a sudden you raise the interest level high enough, the audience numbers get high enough. Now all of a sudden that bottom fruit that you really aren't worth, it's not worth picking. Now all of a sudden you can start selling house shows out or getting damn close. Now as expensive as they are, you've got margins. You can break even. You can make money. You can lose money less often. It's promotion, it happens. But getting rid of squash matches not only didn't destroy a marketing opportunity, it was a marketing opportunity that grew the business across the boards, from television ratings to house show attendance to licensing to merchandising. That one move of getting squash matches off TV is what elevated the business, because what elevates a business is driven by television, or was at that time.
Well, these days, everybody's paying a little more attention to their finances at home, and Eric can help you there too at savewitheric.com. All right, boys and girls, take a look at this New York Fed consumer credit panel. What we've got here is all the household debt compounding, and you see it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Man, if that's the way it feels at your house, it feels like you're getting further and further in debt. I want you to know there is help out there. I want to help you right now at savewitheric.com. And don't just take my word for it. Someone who's done this recently is our guy McIntyre. He's a plumber from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He had a baby on the way. He needed a new car. He didn't want to have to go take out a new loan. He came to us. We were able to show him how to use the equity he had built up in his condo to purchase that new car, pay off some debt, skip a couple of house payments. So now he's got that extra set of wheels. He got rid of all that debt, and he's saving over $1,000 a month. Really think about that. Normally, when you think about adding a new vehicle, you're thinking about adding a new payment. And if you already have credit card debt, man, that feels like a double whammy. How can I afford all this? The solution is in your house. If it feels like life's coming crashing down on you and it hurts inside, well, okay, maybe that's a sidebar. You know what to do. Go right now to savewitheric.com. Eric and his team can run the numbers for you. There's no cost, there's no obligation. And if we can't save you some cash, we won't waste your time. But Eric Bischoff really is licensed to help you save money. He really can help you save money on your current situation. And I don't want you to feel ashamed or embarrassed. I recently had a conversation with one of our listeners who says, Conrad, I should have done this 3 years ago. And I said, why didn't you? And he said, well, I just feel like I know you, man. I listen to you 5 days a week, and I have for years. And I was embarrassed that I had credit card debt. Don't feel that way. Hey, man, we've all got stuff. I mean, the reality is your current credit score and your current financial situation, it's temporary. It always moves up and down. I mean, if you're checking your online banking every day, hey, it's up some days, it's down others. That's life. And that's exactly what this is. But what you need is you need a plan. Hey, what are your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals? Let us help you accomplish those right now at savewitheric.com. If you're feeling stuck making the minimum payment, if you're drowning in credit card debt, if you just wish you could save some cash each month and have a little more money left over at the end of the month, no matter what your situation is, we can help. We can even show you how to have your house paid off faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. No matter your circumstance, savewitheric.com can help. And I want to mention, when you work with our team here at savewitheric.com, you get our year 3 guarantee. All the experts seem to agree that interest rates are going to improve in the next couple of years, and we don't want you to miss out on that. We want you to save as much money as you can for you and your family right now, but also not waste money later. Start saving money today, right now, at savewitheric.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Find out how much money you can save for free right now at savewitheric.com. We are live here taking your questions. We're doing a Ask Eric Anything. We'll do a few more, and then we'll put a button on this one. I've really enjoyed our conversation with a lot of different hypotheticals, but we're getting some questions about life advice. Like, here's one from Eric who says, what advice would 70-year-old Eric Bischoff give to 18-year-old Eric Bischoff? Now, that's interesting. If your current self could have a conversation with your 18-year-old self, what might you say, Eric?
Oh gosh. Especially 18. It wasn't not a year I'm proud of. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Do really hard things that you really don't want to do. And pick really hard things that you really don't want to do that require focus and discipline. Because I think focus and discipline are my two biggest weak spots. I've got others, but focus and discipline has been the biggest challenge. It's one of the reasons why I have always had 3 or 4 things going on simultaneously. Some of them rough ideas, some of them other people involved in developing those rough ideas, some of them sitting on somebody's desk waiting for a signature, some of them just bouncing around on my freaking skull at night. I've never been able to focus on one thing and give it 100% of my focus. It's almost like other projects or other opportunities feeds me more than anything else. So my energy goes up, my endorphins kick in. It's stimulating for me to have meaningful things going on. So I would teach myself to do hard shit you hate to do that requires focus and discipline, because I think that affects almost every other aspect of your life going forward.
Devin Dowling asks, on the latest video Maven uploaded, he smoked a joint with Rob Van Dam. Is there a celebrity Eric wishes he could smoke or take a drink with that hasn't been able to? Is there somebody out there you'd like to share a beverage with that you never really got to? You know, it feels like you should have because you're in a similar orbit. You just never had that chance. Is there somebody out there like that, Eric?
No, I mean, there's, like world figures, you could bring people back to life.
Sure.
Or if I get to meet them in the afterlife. Yeah, I got some people I want to chat with, but that kind of stuff doesn't matter to me. Celebrities, are there interesting people in general? Yeah. I don't know that they're big celebrities or not, but I'd like to get inside some people's heads and understand how they got there, why they think the way they think, their experience. There's a lot of those people. But other than that, there's no celebrity that I'd like to just meet to hang out with, because I've never valued celebrity. I value it as a commodity because it has a transactional value, but it only has transactional value if you know how to put a valuation on it. You can't be out of whack. You can't be thinking you're up here when you're really down here. Or as a producer, you can't think somebody's up here and find out the hard way they're really down. So I respect celebrity as an asset, but it's not an aspirational quality to me.
Let's remind everybody that we hope you have a safe and happy 4th of July. It's important that everybody remember that, you should use an Uber. Don't drive drunk. And if you are going to use fireworks, let's be sober. Let's be careful. Let's have an event-free or incident-free holiday. We've got a lot of great wrestling coming up next weekend, Eric. I want to ask you about it. But first, I do want to mention what happened last weekend. There was some news as we headed towards Saudi Arabia and Night of Champions that there was some discussion with everything that was going on politically with Iran and their proximity and their part of the country. Should the WWE make the Saudi Arabian show? They pulled it off without any incident. No one's injured. Everyone's happy. Everybody's cool. So that's great to hear. But when you take a look at Saudi Arabia, it does feel like it was a show that was surrounded in controversy. First, there was the debate of whether or not they should actually go. We're happy to see they pulled off a successful show, and it seems like there was no incident there. But in addition to that, there was this chatter around CM Punk. And I don't think this is all the way necessarily fair, and it feels like sometimes we lose the plot in wrestling. Punk sent a social media post years ago aimed at The Miz. I think The Miz had made some sort of reference to CM Punk on WWE programming. Mr. Brooks felt a certain type of way about that and took it out on Twitter. But he made a reference to Miz in Saudi Arabia that wasn't very pleasant. And last week, in advance of WWE doing Friday Night SmackDown and from Saudi Arabia, they had like a pep rally or a presser, that sort of thing. And they had Punk have an interaction that was caught on camera and allegedly replayed before the live events that weekend, where Punk essentially apologized to the people of Saudi Arabia. Again, we're not trying to have a political podcast. That is not what we're all about here. But I just couldn't help but watch that show last weekend and look at the little kids really enjoying themselves and think about myself as a little kid. What a big deal it was when my dad took me to see the WWF live and in person. So I'm thankful that those families and those little kids had an opportunity to do that. But I've seen some criticism around Punk that I just find as a real head scratcher. Like, maybe he shouldn't have taken Miz to task for doing his job years ago. I think sometimes people maybe take things a little too personally. But the vitriol people went after Punk last week for doing his job. Like, I don't know. What do you make of this? It feels like a silly talking point to me on some level.
It's so pervasive, not only in the wrestling internet wrestling community. But across the board, pop culture, mainstream, whatever you want to call it, it's like people are so starved for attention and validation that when they find a group that validates, you can't help but say political, ideological nonsense, and they put it out there in the ether because there is a large group of people that just respond in a positive way to anything that is ideologically 180 degrees from their opposition, which in this case would be conservatives. Just think about it for a moment. I know we can't say, let's not talk politics, because we're talking about politics. You can't talk about politics without talking about it. This whole thing is a political reaction. Here's how I look at it. I don't care how anybody else looks at it. To each their own, I guess. Not I guess, I know. Here's my take. You could argue dumb post. How many years ago?
Like 5 or 6.
All right, dumb post 5 or 6 years ago. How many of us have not sent dumb posts 5 or 6 years within the last 5 or 6 years?
All of us.
Wow. Some of them pretty horrible. I'll speak for myself. So to go to, just beat on this guy because of a stupid post. That's right off the bat. That's a head scratcher. I just literally scratched my head. And then the reaction after that and the heat on him. I'll tell you what, and Conrad, you and I spoke about this, and you may not remember this, but when there was speculation about Punk leaving AEW before he actually left, and there was speculation about, what would happen if he went to WWE? Long before he did, you and I talked about it. Somebody may have asked a question on this show. What do you think will happen if Punk goes to WWE? But I remember specifically saying something to the effect, I can't paraphrase, I'm going to paraphrase myself, something to the effect as, who knows? Because he's going from one environment that he's obviously not functioning in into a very mature process that is very, very well managed. So we'll see. And obviously Punk adapted. And part of that is being a professional. Part of being a professional is recognizing before he made the decision to sign on a dotted line, he knew WWE was doing business in Saudi.
Yep.
He knew what those expectations were.
Yep.
And he reconciled that decision in his own way to his own satisfaction.
Years ago.
So I respect Punk.
Me too.
He did what he had to do. Because here's another thing that I wish people paid more attention to while they're, ranting and raving about politics. Pull yourself back from the two screens you're watching, because it literally is two different movies. News is just like watching two separate movies with two separate stories. It's tough unless you really take the time. But what is happening right now today? Saudi, Israel, Somalia, not Somalia. I'll think of it. There are countries now that are lining up possibly for an expanded version of the Abraham Accords. You don't have to know much about it other than, hey, it creates a much more peaceful situation than we currently have in the Middle East. Oh, and by the way, Israel, just as a side note, has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire, or a ceasefire within 60 days, or a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. So that carnage is stopping. Things are settling down. Part of that happens, in my opinion, because of the goodwill that the current administration has with countries that have not had the best relationship with the United States. And part of that is just accepting that there are differences of opinions, there are differences of cultures, there are differences of religions. And the baseline is Just be respectful. You don't have to agree. We don't have to force other countries to adapt our version of democracy. It's not our job. Our job is to get along. Part of that comes down to individual choices, decisions, and actions. And I applaud Punk for his choices, his decisions, and his actions, because to me, he's a pro. And he did the right thing. And maybe by everybody just chilling out a little bit, not putting our virtue signaling brand on everything and making it negative. I think it's kind of cool that a big part of American pop culture is being enjoyed by people from an entirely different culture. Sure, culture that I wouldn't want to live in, but I get the choice. So ease up, people. Just ease up.
Yeah, let's try being nice to each other, and let's hope that we can all be nice next weekend, because Starrcast is here. It's happening Friday, July 11th and Saturday, July 12th. We're going to have a who's who of the superstars of today, and of course, all your Hall of Famers and legends from yesteryear, including a Texas panel that I, in particular, am pretty fired up about. Dory Funk is going to be there. We've got Stan Hansen, who's going to be there. Kevin Von Erich will be there. And of course, John Bradshaw Layfield, all on stage, telling your stories about the good old days of Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. And man, we just keep adding more events. We hope you'll make plans to join us. It's next Friday and Saturday in Arlington at the Sheraton. Bracelets are on sale now. That'll get you access to all of the different panels. You're also going to be able to zip through the line and buy some meet and greets a little faster. We've got some really cool, fun pro photo ops coming and some nice surprises up our sleeve. Some names that we haven't announced that are going to be there as surprises you don't want to miss. That's STARRCAST.com. Of course, later that night, though, Eric, it's going to be particularly interesting given your history. We know that Goldberg is coming back for Saturday night's main event in Atlanta. He's got a title shot against Gunther. Of course, believe it or not, and this is crazy to think about, this weekend, July 6th, is going to be the anniversary of when he beat Hulk Hogan for the world title at the Georgia Dome back in 1998. So a few days after that, 6 days after that anniversary, he'll step in the same town in the ring for a belt that looks a little bit like the old big gold belt from WCW against Gunther. Go ahead and call your shot a week and change ahead of time. Eric, is Goldberg winning the world title next weekend, even if it's just for a moment or two?
No, but his check will be bigger than the one he got in WCW for the same thing.
We'll have a preview for all that and a lot more. It's going to be a hell of a wrestling weekend. We hope you'll make plans to join us. It's Starrcast coming your way on Friday, July 11th and Saturday, July 12th. And of course, what a day. WWE piggybacking it. Saturday night's main event that night, the WWE Evolution pay-per-view for all the women the very next day on Sunday. We're going to have a lot to break down, but I've got a crazy travel schedule next week, as you may imagine, Eric. So I think you and I will probably need to throw one in the can on like Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. So what we want to make sure you know to do is to make plans to join us live. We're going to be live on YouTube at 83weeks.com. That's the best place to catch all things Eric Bischoff. You never know when we're going to go live, when Eric's got something he wants to get off of his chest, but it's easy to make sure you never miss it. You just go right now to 83weeks.com. We're not selling you a subscription. It's a totally free site. It's YouTube, folks. We just want you to hit the subscribe button, but maybe just as importantly, don't forget to hit the notifications bell. So that way, no matter where you are, you get a push notification that says, hey, Eric Bischoff's live. Come ask him anything you want. And without further ado, that'll do it for us today, boys and girls. We look forward to next week. Eric, we've got a big week next week for wrestling, but you got a big weekend with Mrs. B. She's not listening right now. What do you got up your sleeve? What's your fun surprise? What are you treating Mrs. B with this weekend?
Nothing special, man. It's her birthday, obviously, but neither one of us are gift givers. You know, we're experience givers, I guess. So, 4th of July is a pretty big experience. We're going to have friends and family here, and it's a very, very big day and a fun day. And that's kind of what she digs. It's just a relaxed, fun day with family and friends. So that's what she going to get.
And I think about 11 pounds of butt too, right? Something like
16.
that. Yeah, there you go. Maybe 11 after I get through. We'll see you next week, boys and girls, right here on 83weeks.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what adfreeshows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-free shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that adfreeshows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. adfreeshows.com.